Hey everyone, thank you so much for checking out our latest installment of Loadbang's Power Chats. It's been a little bit since we've done one of these, but we're really happy to have a longtime collaborator and friend, Matthew Ricketts, here. We're going to talk a little bit about his piece, St. Lazarus Awakes, which will be playing on our May 24th concert at St. Charles Borromeo in Brooklyn Heights. And the program is titled Testament. Ty, I wonder if you
Yeah,
could kick us off with the first question.
yeah. Well, first, thank you to Matthew for joining us and for making the time. It is I think, strange choice for a composer who has, I think, historically centered like queer affect and queer history to choose the Bible as a go-to. There's something very maybe perverse or at least slightly off kilter about choosing so famous a biblical story from a perspective like yours, Matt. And so I wonder if you could talk about how the story of Lazarus transforms or undergoes a real kind of revision or perhaps reconceptualization in this piece.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Wonderful. Interesting question. Uh, well, I mean, I've worked with religious thematics in varying different projects. So for me, uh, that doesn't feel strange. I've done it. I have like a big sort of like Mary Magdalene project. As well, that sets poetry by Mark Wunderlich. That's more like sort of explicitly a sort of queer take on Mary Magdalene. Whereas, yeah, this I don't know. I mean, I'm not a religious person, so I think that gives me a certain freedom to sort of approach religious topics and characters and mythology from a sort of outsider perspective. So yeah, and I mean, this piece is from 2019, which feels like a long time ago, and I was trying to remember what I was thinking exactly about the poem, which I wrote myself, famously or infamously.
Infamously, definitely, yeah.
Infamously. Yeah, I've only done that a couple times in my career. And yeah, I'm actually really not sure how that came about. I think had written the poem earlier, and I had maybe wanted to do something with it at some point. Um, and when I wrote the poem, I certainly remember being under the spell of Susan Howe, the poet, and both sort of thematically and also just the way her poems often have this kind of claustrophobic kind of like little square on a page layout. And I thought that would be nifty to try to write a poem that had a certain boxed in shape. But it's two poems, and the first one is a little more sort of like linear, and the second one is much more I don't know, pixelated or sporadic or something. But they both look just like these kind of blocks of text. So I don't know, something about that seemed intriguing to me at the time. And then when I got the Loadbang commission, I thought, well, I should maybe try to work with this text. But yeah, I honestly don't remember explicitly what my feelings were about Lazarus at the time, um, other than yeah, I actually really don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Second Life is a famous sort of queer thematic, right? The option to be born again is one of the perhaps oblique pleasures of it. But what I think stands out more is that there's in the same way that those Richademo poems that Schoenberg set early in his life, the Opus 3, the Opus 4 maybe, or Opus 6, I can't remember what the other side is. Um, they have that eroticized relationship to the Christic figure, right? Schenk mir dein
Mhm,
Gold Come is all about this. Like, what does it mean to eroticize Christ and his relationship to Mary Magdalene?
mhm.
And so I think there's actually one of the kind of subtext that I read, at least in the singing of Saint Lazarus Awakes, is what would it mean to imagine a kind of eroticized Lazarian body?
Hmm.
What would it mean to imagine the relationship of rebirth as an erotic one?
Hmm.
One of in which the raising again of the flesh in old form but newly thought
Hmm.
carries a kind of erotic signifier.
Hmm. Yeah, I like that reading. And that was not something I was thinking of consciously. Though I guess now that I think about it, I mean, I've always been a big fan of the Martin Scorsese film, The Last Temptation of Christ, which to me is one of my favorite Jesus movies. It's true. I mean, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's really a gorgeous and quite strange film. Willem Dafoe is Jesus. Barbara
Right.
Hershey is Mary Magdalene. Pontius Pilate is played by David Bowie in a very interesting cameo. But the actor who plays Lazarus in that is a very, very beautiful man. And even sort of when he comes back from the dead, I remember thinking that he had this, yeah, something this very handsome face wrapped in bandages that were sort of slowly being unwound. So I think maybe I was thinking about that as a visual reference. I don't know. I don't remember who that actor is, um, but he's striking.
Yeah, there's a nice echo there also with Jarman's Saint Sebastian, right? The eroticization
Yeah,
of the Christian
absolutely.
figure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's like I mean for me that like that there's such a history there of those so many of those Christian images to me are just like they're like overloaded, they're overdetermined, they're already like they're already erotic. Yeah, I guess I also find that interesting. Again, sort of from without as someone that's not really my history or my upbringing, but it's always seemed an interesting yeah, sort of like tension that a tension that an atheist lacks, maybe, or a tension that I don't know, something like Unitarian tradition or something like I've like I've been in churches all my life as a musician, and I feel like I'm always sort of attuned to where tension is present or not present, and I think the certainly the Catholics get that um very they get that right, or they get that very potent, at least the sort of the erotic and violent symbols, and how those are yeah, those are sort of in tension with the divine. So yeah, I think that was probably all swirling around somewhere many years ago.
Yeah, I can kind of see it in the orchestration of the piece as well. You very often write for all the instruments at threshold dynamics, dynamics that are very, very hard for us to consistently produce. And then on top of that, we're all kind of similarly mask boxed by choices of muting.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I'd love
Very.
to have some more thoughts about how that relates to the text or helps kind of illuminate it.
Yeah, I feel like it was just like a sort of like a kink of mine at the time. This kind of like compression. Yeah, again, the way the poems look, but also even other pieces that I was writing at the time. I feel they just had this kind of like compressed register, compressed range, compressed dynamics. Um, and it's interesting for me to open up the score now, and like I feel like I've written so much music since then and collaborated with many different um, like poets and librettists that are sort of like maybe more practically minded. And I think I've had some let's say mannerisms kind of beaten out of me. So when I for better or for worse, but when I open up the score, it's just like it's like a mannerism dictionary or something, which I think is it's that's what the piece is, and I think that's like it's a kind of like an interesting document from a certain time of like when I was interested in those kinds of compressions and those kinds of restrictions and yeah, limitation of register and dynamic. Yeah, what is that like to play as a sort of like stricture?
Oh, it's very demanding in its quietude. You really have to try to like really project through a very specific set of mutes or through a very specific dynamic that we're not really taught to, like in conservatory training or school training. We're not really taught to approach projection through the absolute threshold of low dynamics.
Yeah.
So I'm also curious, did you know those sounds and those mutings before, or were you just kind of like piecing it together bit by bit and saying, I think this idea is interesting. I really want to follow this idea.
Mhm. Yeah, I think a bit of both, but I also correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, or whoever, but I don't think I've heard this piece live. I don't think I
I
have.
I think you might be right because my
Yeah.
memory, which is not good, but it is mine, is that we did the premiere. It was a COVID premiere,
Yeah.
and we did it in the Norwegian Siemens Church on the Upper East Side. That's where we were doing all of our shows during the pandemic. We were live streaming everything there,
Yeah, but I
and then
remember I was not even in town. I
no,
remember
and
being in a hotel next to Emily Dickinson's house in
oh, in
Amherst.
Amherst.
That's
Uh,
the most sticks out in my mind. And one of you sent me like a recording from a rehearsal. I've heard that, and I've maybe heard when you did it in where Heather Stebbins teaches in
oh, right.
Washington. Yeah, yeah, she sent me that recording, so I've heard it. I've heard traces of it, but I've never been in the room. So I'm very very excited to hear it. I've also never heard it in Ty's voice, so
We
very 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 excited to hear
so
IRL.
we've not performed it with Ty yet because this piece has had like
Okay.
COVID has meddled in every kind of step along the way. So there was the premiere which we did that you wouldn't have been allowed at even if you were in town, because
Okay.
there was one of those lockdown ones, and
Oh
then we
yeah,
were
yeah,
gonna actually do it in Boston with Ty,
yeah.
and Adrian got COVID, so that we had to cancel that concert. So like this is
Okay.
like I don't know, maybe it's cursed. I hope nothing terrible happens to us next week, uh but yeah, this will be the first time that we're actually as this sort of this lineup is going to be
Yeah.
approaching the piece, which is really really exciting. And I
Um,
mean, my memory of it, it's been a long time since I've played it, but my memory of it is that in the smallness of it, it's actually very expressive. It allows like a triple quadruple piano middle G to have actually this like incredible importance because it's maybe the only thing that's happening, or it's one of two or
yeah.
three things that are happening, and so you have this opportunity to shape these tiny things that
Yeah.
typically would be lost.
Yeah, or like mezzo piano becomes like an event.
Right.
Like, oh my God. Yeah, yeah, again, kind of to sort of like do this like time travel in my brain about the piece. And like I feel like I'm still incredibly interested in conceits and restrictions, but it's just taken other forms now. It's mostly like compositional conceits and restrictions. So it's just like the way I sort of generate material now is has sort of like quasi algorithmic. I kind of have all these like little processes for spitting out, pitches and sort of like games maybe is a way of thinking about it. Which I remember actually, Ty, bringing this up when you gave that beautiful lecture at Longy, and I brought up that Vodsec, I thought was like that for as much about death and despair as that opera is, it's also very much about play because Berg is always playing. There's all these like little games that he's playing, and then that last image of the child, doing the sort of like the hop horse on the beach is like even that. It's like it's a horrible image, but it's also there's something about that that's very sort of strangely playful. So I've definitely come to think of composition as a form of play, and all those conceits and restrictions and sort of boundedness now doesn't have in my music so much a literal like dynamic and registral boundedness, but it's found other forms now. So it's just sort of migrated to a different part of my practice. But yeah, yeah,
On the subject of conceits or restraints, the this is one of the few pieces we have that has a delimited trio. Usually we play things as four all the way through, and if there's a trio, it's just a happenstance of a section. But in this piece, the trio takes its own form, its own kind of like an enclosedness.
yeah.
Can you talk about this? Can you talk about the decision to actually like abdicate the voice for the time being and to just give the
In
instruments
that
their own space?
in that little mini interlude, yeah, I don't know what I
Yeah.
my, yeah, I thought, well, yeah, I guess uh that's just like I guess orchestration is to think about who's not playing and as much it is as it is to think about who's playing. And I think that's why I thought maybe the interlude in the sort of gap between the two blocks of text could be this sort of text-free zone. But I mean, uh, I wanted to propose, if I may, in this power chat, that you actually maybe recite the poem or what you thought about that. I thought maybe I don't know where it would go, if it would be like before the first part and then the interlude and then you recite again the second part, or I don't know. What do you think about recitation, or is that changing things too much?
No, it's not changing things too much at all. Although impulsively, maybe this is just the particular form of my imagination, but there's something. I mean, talk about second life or rebirth. To do the whole piece, to reach the end, and then to just speak the whole text again,
Mm.
seems to me actually like a really like magical moment of like we've reached the end of the music, we're in silence, and the text births itself a second time in the kind of blank space or the white space of the kind of the after silence to
Yeah.
say something again. How do you feel about that?
That's gorgeous, yeah. But I'll have to put a footnote thanking you for that idea, because my idea was a much more basic, straight ahead version, just to sort of read it before each section. But yeah, maybe after, like a little epilogue. But yeah, I'm
I
not
mean,
sure.
it actually
Yeah.
feels like, as someone who did grow up Catholic, it's like very liturgical feeling actually.
Oh yeah,
From the
totally.
pulpit, like the reading and then this sort of responsorial musical thing that happens, which like
Mm.
leans into I mean, one of the things we're playing with this Testament program, it's a lot of repertoire that is engaging with religion in one way or the other, but is not
Oh, great.
necessarily religious music, right? So like
Yeah.
this is not church music, but it is engaging with these traditions and these stories.
Yeah.
Um, and in some of the pieces, it's a little adversarial or a little like poking. And in some, it just is like yours. I think of as it's taking this as a story. It's taking these symbols and engaging with it artistically without really commenting about
Mm.
it at all. Um, but so
Yeah.
it was interesting to us, and I think like the idea of having the text recited is actually like further so kind of leans into this play um, with this subject.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's something we can try.
We could also dress Ty up as a priest. I don't know. No,
Like from like the Halloween store or something.
yeah,
Like
yeah. No bad ideas in brainstorming, right? Especially not when
Yeah,
it's on
yeah.
YouTube.
Yeah, so Loadbang and Spirit Halloween collaboration.
a little
This
sponsorship, a little yeah, a little cross promo. Um,
yeah, slutty nun. Yeah.
Well, Matthew, I know you have to go teach here in the moment,
yes,
spreading the good word uh,
yes, indeed.
uh, of aesthetics.
Yes,
But thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us about your piece. We're really excited to revisit it. Uh,
yeah, yeah. Thank you all for for performing it again, and yeah, and performing it anew, and with Ty and with me present. And no one's gonna get sick this time, and this is gonna happen, and I'm very excited. And yeah, send me the rehearsal schedule, and we'll find out a way for me to come hear it.
That sounds great. And thank you to all who are checking these power chats out. We have years of these now that are this series of interviews with many of our favorite artists and composers, and a chance to sort of informally talk about their pieces for us, and then any number of different directions these conversations have gone. So we hope you continue to check out the backlog of these and all the ones that are to come. Thanks, y'all.
Wonderful.
Thanks,
Thanks.
man.